Hello booktube, this is Lindy. Welcome to my channel, Lindy's Magpie Reads. We are looking after our dog Joni's brother for a few days. So this is Mr. Nubbins. You might see him running around in the background and barking. Alright, so the big thing for us this past week, we had an open house art show this past Saturday, and you can see a little bit of my garden as it looks from the inside of the house in the opening clip that I use. That's from my kitchen window with grapevines all around, and then I have got about 4 minutes of walking through the entire upper floor of our house showing the art just before the art sale and show began. So stick around for that at the end if you're interested, and you can see the garden outside through the windows as I go through the house. I have got 7 books to tell you about this week. 2 of them are graphic novels. 2 of them are part of my Shadow Giller project. 2 are by performance poets. 1 audiobook, and 3 are by trans and or non-binary artists. I was supposed to attend an exhibit at the art gallery yesterday. There was a guided tour of the Comic Sans exhibit, the Art Gallery of Alberta. So I was supposed to see this, and late bus and 30-degree heat waiting for the bus. I ended up giving up. I knew I wouldn't make it there in time, but I am going to see it soon. Anyway, one of the artists in that exhibit is Walter Scott, and this week I read Wendy Master of Art, which is the 3rd in his series about Wendy, who is a Canadian artist. It is satire about the Canadian art world, the pretensions, the parochial, is that the word? The parochial nature. That's just the very narrow Canadian art scene. Wendy, you know, when it starts out, she is party girl in Berlin. I think she's doing an art residency there, and then gets word that she's been accepted into this Master of Fine Arts program at a university in small town Ontario, fictional small town called Howl. Over the course of the story, she finds her footing as an artist, and there's also a really good exploration of friendship relationships and romantic relationships. There's also this character Sandy, who I believe is in some of the earlier books. I didn't read the first 2 books, by the way, and this one stands on its own. So Sandy comes to the university as a guest speaker, and she's introduced as being somebody who shows work across Canada exclusively and has a good working relationship with every single institution and arts professional in Canada. And we see Sandy's smug face during this intro and thinking, unless they're not woke. Oh yeah, I enjoyed this very much. The style is, it seems kind of chaotic and a little messy when you first look at these line drawings, for me anyway, when I opened the book, but I immediately was able to acclimatize, or as soon as I was familiar with the style, I really liked it. Very easy to follow and very funny, very funny. So speaking of Canadian books, the next 2 books are both for my Shadow Giller project. Here I am, trying to read as many as possible before the official Giller Longlist is announced on September 7th, I think it is. And I've read 32 so far. I own another 5, and I'm in the process of reading 2 others. So I am planning to do a hopeful, my wish list, what I and prediction for the Giller Longlist the day before it's officially announced, if all goes to plan. And then after that, after the official list is announced, Sean the Book Maniac and I are planning to do a reaction video together, so you can watch for that. But meanwhile, Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl has done a fantastic Giller wish list video, and she really delves into who the jurors are and lots more information about the Giller Prize, and I highly recommend watching that video. So, what did I read this week for the Giller? This is a debut novel by Jill Frayne, who is an adventure travel writer, and she's also worked many years as a family therapist. And both of those things come to the fore, I guess, in this novel, which is about a psychologist working in Whitehorse, Yukon. That's enough. That's enough. She is dealing with personal grief, and one of her clients is a 15-year-old named Gail, who is having a lot of troubles as well. So those are the 2 main characters. This is very much a character-based novel with lots of gorgeous descriptions of the Yukon and Whitehorse. One of the things about Gail, the teenager, is that she has a strong interest in boxing and in wrestling magazines. And when I was doing teen services, especially around the early part of the 2000 aughts, wrestling magazines were really hot in my teen section. And this novel is actually set in 1995. So there was so much that I could identify with, not just Yukon, where my sister lives, and actually even the roads that she describes, where her psychologist main character lives is close to where my sister lives. She talks about Takini Hot Springs. If you watch my Yukon Road Trip video, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that is book number 1 for Shadow Giller. And book number 2 was on audio, The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, and it is by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. She's a Mexican-Canadian. As you can probably tell by the title, she was inspired by the H.G. Wells novel, The Island of Dr. Moreau. And The Daughter of Dr. Moreau is set in the Yucatan Peninsula in the 19th century. And it's from the viewpoint of the daughter of a kind of mad scientist who is creating half-human, half-animal creatures. At the beginning of the novel, we learn that the Mayan word for both island and peninsula is Petén. And the Indigenous Mayan people are part of this story. Stories about monsters often use the idea that monsters are reflections of part of ourselves, and I think that's going on in this book. But the main thing is the way that outsiders see half-human, half-animal creations as monstrous, and the main protagonist, the daughter, sees them as siblings. There's also a really good exploration of the role of women in society in this novel, which is very gothic. And sometimes I'm kind of so-so on books by this author, but I really, really liked this one. The audio is read by Gisela Chíba, and she does an excellent job. Next up is a graphic novel, A Gift for a Ghost, by Borja Gonzalez, and who is a Spanish cartoonist, and it's translated by Lee Douglas. Now there are monsters in this one as well, and two timelines, including one that is set in 1856, where Teresa is a poet who is obsessed with vampires and ghosts and monsters of all kinds, and the writings of Edgar Allan Poe. And then she's got a counterpart in the year 2016, Gloria. Now, Gloria has been asked by a couple of other girls if she will join a punk band, and not knowing how to play an instrument is actually considered a plus. So these girls watch monster movies together. Laura, who does the songwriting, has a lot of crossover also between these timelines. The author is doing something very different with time here, sort of a distortion of time, I think. And I have read through this graphic novel 3 times, and I get more from it each time. I think it's about 133 pages long. I really liked it a lot. So another thing about Laura is she loves to dress up in costumes, including there's a scene where she's wearing a dinosaur costume, and it reminded me of, it was in 2021, I think October 2021, when I happened to see a couple of girls. They sounded like they were teenagers because they were yakking to each other, but they were dressed in dinosaur costumes, just walking down the street in the little cul-de-sac across from where I live. Yeah, so apparently teenagers do this. And I wanted to comment on the art as well. It is mostly done in sort of greenish shades, quite monochromatic, but there are some pages that have red and some yellow and orange, and also the way that Gonzalez has these faceless characters that, even though they don't have features on their faces, they convey so much expression just through their body movement, which I thought was really, really cool. I love the art. Okay. 2. All right. Okay, I'm on to my final 3, and any interruptions for dogs barking. So the final 3, these are all by trans or non-binary creators. And I'm going to start with another book about ghosts. It's called Too Bright to See, and it's by Lukoff. This was a Stonewall Book Award winner and also a National Book Award finalist and a Newbery honor book. Lukoff's picture book, When Aidan Became a Big Brother, I think it's called. I reviewed that in a video where I was talking about Lambda Literary Award finalists in the picture book category. So I will link to that video below. So this one is both a ghost story and a queer story. Now, it's a middle grade novel. I'm going to give you a spoiler telling you a little bit, just a little bit of a spoiler about why adults would want to pick it up. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, not even a little bit, skip forward. I still have to figure out how to do the timestamps. Maybe when I see Sean in 10 days from now, I will get him to show me how to do that. Anyway, the reason I'm saying I want to tell you is because through the course of this novel, Bug, the central character, comes out as a trans boy. And it's a very gentle story with a feel-good ending. I really liked the positive approach to trans coming out. A lot of times there is a focus on the negative, transphobia, and in this one, that's not the case. So I really like that about it. Now, we discussed this in my YA book club earlier this week, and some of the other members felt like it was too much of a fairy tale ending, but I actually like that about it, you know, that things turn out all right. Now, one of the things that I didn't care for about this book is the cover art. I find it pretty uninspired, but I looked into it, and the artist, like the author, is transmasculine. And so the artist is Noah Grigni, and I found a thing online about them having a museum exhibit with portraits of trans kids. And when I looked at more of their art, it kind of grew on me, and now I like this cover better. I think I might pop in another image so that you can see it. Well, maybe you can see it all right here. So, 2 more left to go. Why I Was Late by Charlie Petch. Charlie Petch is a transmasculine, multidisciplinary artist, a Canadian. I think they live in Toronto, and this is their first full-length collection of poetry. They're quite well known as a slam poet. I think I will link to one of their performances in the notes if you are interested. These poems are about being trans, about being working as a lighting tech, about working as a street hot dog vendor, and being in a punk band. There's often notes for musical accompaniment mentioned at the start of a poem. They talk about wearing a Wookiee costume, which kind of relates to some of the other books that I've been telling you about being animal or wearing an animal costume. And also, there are poems about a boxer and about wrestling, and the wrestler Owen Hart, who died in 1999 when he died live on a pay-per-view wrestling show. He was being lowered into the wrestling ring, and the harness gave way, and he died. It was just kind of interesting. I found our serendipity, how that tied into Jill Frayne's book, Why I'm Here, and the girl who was obsessed with wrestling in a similar time period in the 90s. Read you a little bit. This poem is called Why Did the Trans Kid Cross the Road? And it opens with an explanation. In 2019, Ontario's newly elected provincial Conservative government scheduled a debate about the existence of trans and non-binary people and gave out a hotline number to report teachers talking about gender identity or respecting pronouns. Our former Liberal government had made it essential for schools to welcome trans and non-binary identities. So in this poem, Charlie Petch imagines what it would be like for somebody at different stages of social and political environment to be a trans kid. 1. I am 6 years old. My identity has no words. The crossing guard asks me if I'm a boy or a girl. My mouth is a goldfish. I start to cry. He asks again, and because he sounds mean, I say, girl. I don't know what to do with the feeling that this is a lie, and I almost throw up from the rush. Number 2. I imagine this incident as a recent one, occurring under our former, more inclusive government. When the crossing guard asks me if I'm a boy or a girl, I tell him I'm transmasculine. I tell him my pronouns and that my name is Charlie. Maybe he's still mean, but now he can't say anything. Number 3. I imagine I am that kid today. This morning, our new government has instructed schools that trans and non-binary identities aren't real. I approach the crossing guard. Yesterday, I told him my name and pronouns. Today, he is holding them as a handful of blades. He asks me, are you a boy or a girl? And I know it's mean. He grips the pronouns. My blood spills between his fingers. I run. He doesn't stop the cars. Earlier this week, I went to a fringe holdover of Pansy Cabaret, and in it, the drag performer, it performed musical pieces from 100 years ago and talked about the situation for transgender and drag performers 100 years ago, and what happened in the intervening years when it pretty much became illegal or very much had to go underground. There was a news story a few days ago. I saw it on Book Riot, actually. I will link the story. And it's about a Texas school board that bans the word transgender from all their schools. This is heartbreaking that transphobia has been going on for a century. We need to keep fighting. My final book is by a non-binary performer from the UK, Tempest. It was in the year 2020 that they came out as non-binary. So this book, which is from 2016, has a slightly different name on the cover. Let Them Eat Chaos. This won the Costa Book Award in 2016. And I bought this at Shakespeare and Company in Paris in 2016. Read it a couple of times, most recently this past week. I have listened to Tempest perform this a couple of times. It's also an award-winning performance, by the way, and I will link to a BBC live performance below. It is a long poem, an indictment of contemporary society. It reminds me of another long queer poem that I really love, and that is Howl by Allen Ginsberg. Now, Ginsberg's poem celebrates queer pride and overcoming homophobia, while Tempest has more of a focus on coming together regardless of our differences, celebrating our common humanity. And it's fantastic. I highly recommend this. This was my favorite read of the week. And I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.